Here's all the actions you can do in Skyrim, but notice how many of them are done with the menus and how these are all bound to a single button. The game chooses the action or the verb for you, depending on what object you're looking at. It's a great system that lets you do many things simply without having to look up the controls. But Nethack, the very old graphically challenged roguelike dungeon crawler, is not concerned with ease of use at all. It features many more actions, or verbs, and rather than squashing them all together into a few keys, it uses every letter on the keyboard twice or more for its multitude of different actions. You press P to pay in a shop, Shift P to put something on, and Alt P to pray to your god. It's an overcomplicated system that makes Nethack extremely difficult to get into and learn. Most new players spend quite a few minutes just trying to figure out how to go down the stairs to level 2. It's the greater than key, by the way. Nethack is a victim of its age, of being first developed in the practically ancient past of gaming. No modern game designer in their right mind would ever dream of making a game this clunky, but it's part of what makes Nethack interactive in ways that other games simply can't hold a candle to, quite literally. In Nethack you can dual wield candles, or even eat one. There's point to separating objects from their verbs. While most games say, here's what you can do, Nethack asks the new player, what do you want to try? It feels like you can do anything, try anything, and the game gives you good reasons to. In Nethack, sometimes it makes perfect sense to use strange verbs with standard objects, like eating a ring or throwing all your money away. There are much fewer restrictions on what actions you can take with what objects than in other games. To get what I mean, let's talk about potions. Usually a game tells you exactly what a potion is, what it does, and the only thing you can do is drink, drop, or sell it. And those last two actions have no real use. They're basically admissions that the potion is useless. In Nethack you can of course drink a potion, actually quaff it, D was already taken, but it's not always a good idea to drink unidentified potions. So you might try throwing one, letting enemies be your guinea pigs. You can dip things into potions, or dilute them with water. And dropping them actually has a use in Nethack. Enemies will pick up and use the potions, allowing you to identify them, which might come in handy if you survive the now invisible orc. That orc shows it's not just about the player. There are 3 elements that work together to make Nethack's closed, dark dungeons bigger than any open world could ever be. The first is player verbs. The second is enemies. All the things you can do to them, all the things they can do, and how that's more than just bashing each other until one of you falls over. Yes, you can talk to the enemies in this game, although to be fair most of them don't have anything to say. But some of them can be bribed to leave you alone, while others you can Nethack and chill. Most enemies you'll just kill, but the interactions don't stop at their death. You can eat them to gain their powers, or pick up their corpses and wield them as weapons. Similarly, enemies can do things other than just try to murder you. Nurses will hit stubborn patients who refuse to disrobe, but will heal a naked player. Just be careful a bunch of soldier ants don't show up and catch you with your pants down. Things like this make combat an interesting puzzle when facing multiple enemies, which is almost all the time. Leprechauns will steal your money and then teleport away, which gets me back to what I said earlier about using strange verbs with standard objects. Throwing all your money away out of their reach as you engage them is a viable strategy. Number 3 is the objects. They react to environmental effects. Your metal items will rust in water, your potions will boil and explode when you're hit by flame. Everything reacts to everything else in special ways. If you have a magical bag that holds more inside it than its outside dimensions would suggest, whatever you do, don't put a wand of magic cancellation into it. The in-joke is that Nethack has everything including the kitchen sink, literally, and I'm pretty sure no other game has a tin of grease, let alone multiple uses for one. Most important is the hundreds if not thousands of possible interactions, the way everything responds to everything else. Nothing is blocked off or restricted, and everything you can think of works. Everything. In situations so rare you can't believe the game will possibly have a response for it, it does. It will print out yet another funny message for you, because as the saying goes, the dev team thinks of everything. In Nethack's Medusa level, you have to cross a sea. Opening and applying that tin of grease will protect your items from rust and corrosion. The sea is filled with dangerous eels and kraken that can grab you with their tentacles, pull you under the waves, and drown you. But if you've greased yourself up before crossing, instead the game will print, "The kraken grabs you, but cannot hold on to your greased armour." Be careful though. If you try using a cursed can of grease, yes, that's a thing, the grease will cover your hands instead and your slippery fingers will drop your weapon, leaving you defenseless. It's okay, you can apply a towel to wipe off the grease. And when you've finished crossing that sea, you can put on that towel, covering your eyes to avoid the petrifying gaze of Medusa, all while wielding a simple hand mirror to use her own ghastly image against her. Just don't forget to remove your makeshift blindfold before you try going down the stairs. I could seriously spend another 15 minutes just showing you cool things that couldn't possibly happen in any other game. I could explain strange things being used in multiple ways that other games simply don't allow. But it's much better if you discover these interactions yourself, which leads me to my biggest problem with Nethack. You don't discover anything for yourself. There's lots there to discover, but when a common result of experimenting is permadying, players learn not to do it. So beyond the beginning levels, you learn to look up things online. It's necessary to progress in the game. For example, there's a point in the game in which you need 7 candles to progress, and if you've spent the whole game so far burning or eating them, you've made things much more difficult for yourself. To beat the game, you need to build a pack of certain required items, what's commonly referred to as an ascension kit. Everyone just Googles what they need. Perhaps some of you are thinking now that you can do it alone. You like a challenge. You're not afraid of digging deep into a game. But you have no idea how deep this game goes. It might take a lifetime of playing Nethack normally to beat it without spoilers. As far as I know, it's never been done. Even with permadeath off, in what's called Explore mode, it would be a huge challenge, like playing the world's most obscure and convoluted adventure game that had combat getting in the way everywhere you went. With permadeath on, the combat is tense and full of interesting choices. With it off, it's just a complete mindless chore. The game was designed to be played with permadeath on and players completely spoiled. Perhaps originally it was made for the community to share secrets, to learn how to beat the game together, but all its secrets have been mined now, so that metagame is gone. I love roguelikes, and Nethack is the game that got me into the genre. It's also the only one that has such massive interactivity. You should definitely play it, but I'd suggest doing what I did. Play it without spoilers. Experiment and learn at your stupid deaths. Learn all the secrets of its beginning levels on your own. And maybe 60 hours later, when you get a character really going deep and you can't bear the thought of them dying to something you had no idea about, start looking things up. Hopefully you won't end up like me. I put the game down soon after picking up the wiki pages, but many players powered on and have continued to play Nethack for years, even decades. Because of random generation, combat presents even those hardcore veterans with new puzzles each and every time, as a random assortment of enemies come together on a completely fresh dungeon layout. And with the game's vast amount of items and interactions, they're encouraged to find original solutions rather than relying on the same old rinse and repeat combat so common in almost all other games.